Hello, everyone, and welcome to this next Grease race. I am JB Storm, and I have Cuddy Flame here with me.
Hi, everybody.
Apologies for the slightly late start. Just some back-end system stuff being difficult as it tends to be. But I think we're just about ready. We'll make sure everything's kind of working as we go. But I think these racers are going to be getting started shortly. This race is between Natalier and FCRacers. Both of them have PBs that are actually pretty close together, so hopefully this is an exciting race. I believe FC mentioned it's been a little while since he's run the game, so hopefully that doesn't hold him back too much, but we'll see once we get started.
Looks like about 1 minute behind their PB, in between their PB.
Yeah, I believe Natalie's just under 130 and FC is just over. Yeah, Natalie's 129.18 and FC a 130.
130.13. Oh, looks like FCRacer is getting a head start.
And they're off. Yeah, and as we use auto splitters for these timers, so the timer should be accurate to each racer. The discrepancy just from when they start just, being incidental.
Yeah. So we're gonna start off the game with a 2-minute 20 cutscene, I believe. Is that right, GB?
I believe so.
Alright.
It's, I think, I want to say like 3:10 when you are able to hit your first input on the timer. And yeah, so this game, GRIS, is kind of an game as art game by Namada Studios out of Spain. It's full of beautiful set pieces and beautiful artwork. It was a game first made by artists, so you'll see a lot of that throughout this run, a lot of the beautiful parts of the game. It's also not a particularly difficult game casually. You can't die in the game. Most of the setups and the movement is pretty lenient. It's pretty straightforward to get through it, but since we are speedrunners and we like to go fast, we take advantage of every little bit of that we can. And so I think it's a really good speed game. I enjoy running it. Cuddy with me here is actually relatively new to speedrunning it, and he's already, very quickly picked it up and done really well. So
yeah, it's a relaxing speed game. But it's a bit hard when you want to go for a hard time.
Yeah, so it looks like the timers were just off synced because of, I guess, a back-end cropping issue. It does look like their game feeds are also pretty close to where the timers are, so.
Yeah, they fixed it. They paused their FCRacer stream for a bit to sync them.
Perfect. Yeah, and in the end, the timers, when the timers trigger the end split, those will be the ultimate times that matter. But yeah, hopefully it comes right down to it too. There's a good chance we see it get really close.
So we start off the game with a NATO scorer. You just walk. If you press A, you will fall to your knee and lose about 3 seconds.
Which has happened to even the best runners plenty of times.
Indeed.
Also, yeah, I was slightly mistaken on the timing. It's at about 3:10 where you first end this kind of intro walking area and then begin the main part of the run.
Well, it's still relatively a NATO scorer. There's not that much time to save or to lose.
Yeah, and so you'll notice once they get started that you'll see both the racers are jumping. GRIS moves faster in the air than she does walking on the ground. She moves at about a 3.2 on the ground and about a 3.3 in the air. So you'll see these racers bunny hopping throughout the entire run, which I believe saves about 5 minutes over the course of the entire run. So, you know, it ultimately really does matter.
Indeed, it saved 3.2 over walking, but if you're walking over a stair, the speed is at 2.2, so you're saving 1.3 speed while jumping on stair, which is a lot faster.
Yeah, and so back to kind of a little bit about this game. The kind of concept behind this game is that you're following this protagonist who is going through the various emotions of grief, and those emotions being represented by various colors. 5 colors for the 5 emotions of grief that are denial, bargaining, depression, acceptance, anger. That was the other one I missed. And so you'll see those expressed through the colors of the game and see how they ebb and flow and mix, and ultimately it makes for a really, really beautiful game.
Indeed, it is.
And so you'll see here the racers trying to make cutbacks on these stairs. They're trying to, you know, climb up as quickly as possible. Each of those cutbacks, you know, ultimately adding up in a race where, because this game has relatively few controls, there's only a handful of different inputs, and some of them you don't even get until later in the game. Every second matters, even in an hour and a half speed run. So a lot of these, you know, small movements, little strats, little movement errors that can make or break cycles for you are really important in these kind of runs.
Also, we didn't explain it, but the runner picked up 2 stars. These stars will be able to make bridge, like you can see on the screen right now. And that's pretty much the way to progress through the game. You collect these stars, and then you make bridge to go somewhere else, or collect ability.
Yeah, so we saw that tower climb was kind of one of the first major kind of skill testing parts of the game. It looked like a pretty clean tower climb for Natalie and FC. Slight hiccup, but still a pretty good tower climb.
Alright, so right now we're gonna see our runner try to jump into the end. The reason why is when you enter a cutscene, your character will often walk, and it's way slower than jumping, so you will try to jump into the cutscene and reach the farthest possible to walk the least amount of time possible.
Yeah, and that jump into that cutscene right there is one of the biggest in the game too. You know, a good jump into the cutscene saves about 2 seconds over just walking into it. And let us know how the volumes sound, if anything needs to be adjusted. But I think we've got the setup pretty nice now. Got it all sorted out ultimately, so let's watch the race. Here you'll see the racers enter into what is the hub section of the game. It's essentially the middle of the kind of large continuous map that makes up this game, where when you return from each section, you deposit your stars up into the heavens, which by the end of the game will form a bridge that you can finally climb up to.
And it looks like Natalier have a slight lead of 3 seconds, I believe.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And now they're entering into the second main section of the game, which is anger. Again, represented by this red color. You'll see various themes of it throughout it. And there's kind of two halves of this section. The first half being your progression to get your first power-up of the game. And then the second section being a part where you use that power-up in various different puzzles and scenarios.
And we're soon going to be able to see one of the biggest skip of the game, I believe, which save 16th again.
Yeah, so after this tower climb, and then when they enter into the next area, there'll be an area where you'll see various sandstorms. So the sandstorms blow the racers back to the left as they try to move to the right. But there is one section where you do need to go to the right, collect a star, and then return back to the left. And you're actually able to take advantage of that sandstorm by jumping into it and having it propel you. But when you land, in order to not get completely stopped and rolled up by the sandstorm, you have to turn back to the right. So you have to jump to the left, turn back to the right when you land, while holding right, jump again, move back to the left, and ideally make 3 of those jumps to get far enough left to skip one of those sandstorm cycles completely. So as we come up to that, we'll reiterate that.
So yeah, we're gonna see soon the first sandstorm on Natalier sides. So we're gonna be able to see a little bit of the mechanic. It's not gonna be the skip yet, but it's just a preview of the mechanic we're gonna use later.
Yeah, so it looks like neither of the racers are going for it here, but what some racers do is you can actually practice that shimmy there by jumping into that sandstorm and having it carry you back, because effectively you have to be waiting in that secluded area anyway.
Oof.
As a new racer to this game, how was your experience with learning Sandstorm Skip and trying it out?
Honestly, it wasn't that hard.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I just watched Taz's video and I saw that he was turning back, so I said, oh, that's how you do it. After maybe the 6th or 7th try, I was able to do it. So it's not that hard, I think, but I might be special.
Ooh, so it looks like this is kind of the beginning of that skip, but it looks like Natalier left that alcove a little bit too early, got caught up in the sandstorm, and actually got blown back into it. So I don't think she's going to be making the skip. Yeah, she's way too far left for where you would need to be to get that skip. It looks like FC also
Yeah.
has not made it far enough.
Looks like we commentator cursed them. Oh.
Looks like Natalier went for doing some shimmies there, which you might as well do to try to get as far left as possible, but got rolled up after landing the first time.
I think she could have gotten a partial if she got the 3 jump.
I no.
I think so, yeah.
Unless she had incredibly good jumps. I don't think by jumping right out of the alcove you can ever get far enough. But you could show me a video and prove me wrong, absolutely.
I mean, I managed to do it with 1 jump earlier.
You can definitely do it with one jump, but you have to be well far left once the sandstorm even starts for that to happen. And she was still in that alcove when she had to make her first jump.
Aggie is saying that we can get it if we get a good triple. But
Well,
yeah.
fair enough.
It's-
You'll see the runners climbing the rock crab here. There is a memento right in the middle of that rock crab there, which is kind of the collectible of this game. This memento is actually the only one in the game that we say is free, because it doesn't actually lose any time to collect it, because you do it while you're waiting for the rock to move anyway. I like to get it in my any percent runs just because it's fun and I like it for good luck, but it does potentially risk you not getting around in time, so it makes sense that erasers don't collect it.
I call it the slide of shame if you miss the jump onto the platform.
Yeah, and so that's that sandstorm you saw right as they were exiting the rock taxi, or rock crab rather. At the end of that was the sandstorm that you would skip if you were able to make that shimmy, climb all the way up and get to one of those top platforms before that sandstorm. But then to get that, you also have to jump out of that rock crab as soon as possible to try to make it far enough across that bridge to hit the trigger to enter into the next section. And if runners do it too early, they fall down and collect the memento, which becomes a memento of shame.
And now we can see both runners getting their first power up, the heavy. I'll let you explain it a bit more, GB.
Yeah, so the heavy's the first power up you get. GRIS gets nice and thick and turns into a big rock, and she's able to push through these sandstorms. The heavy is also used for various other mechanics, including breaking rocks and pots and triggering pressure plates, a lot of which you will see in this next section of this game.
And right now we'll see a series of 8 heavy done. We'll see how fast they can do it or if they'll take it safe.
Yeah, these are deceptively difficult to do fast without missing the heavies, because you have to wait just long enough to jump again and do another heavy. You noticed at the very beginning of that, Natalier missed one of them by heavying before she was able to jump. So it is surprisingly difficult to hit these quickly. But yeah, it looked like overall relatively clean heavies from both racers. FC looks like gained a little bit of time on
Really
those.
good, yeah. That was really clean from someone who haven't played the game for 9 months.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we're into the second section of red, which is dominated by kind of steampunk-esque clockwork mechanisms that make this section dictated largely by cycles. The first one you'll see here, this Ferris wheel cycle. Very clean from Natalier hitting that first cycle. Looks like FC just missed it, and we'll have to get on this second run of the windmill.
Losing about 6 again, like most cycle do in this part.
And here there are various other little characters we'll see throughout this run, and what Natalier just passed and FC is coming up to is what we in the community have called Lenny. He's actually one of the few instances of RNG in this game. Sometimes he's on the left, sometimes he's on the right. we're pretty confident that where he ends up is ultimately pretty random. But ideally we want him to be on the right so we can jump up to the next area as quickly as possible, losing about a second if he's out of position. And then it also looked like on that middle section, initiating those clocks, Natalier was able to hit the first cycle and get up right after triggering that pressure plate, but I believe FC did miss it, and we'll be losing another 6 seconds for that cycle.
He did.
And then also in this red section, there's one large major cycle that runs over the course of the entire section. It starts once you're blown up by those birds at the heavies at the beginning of this, and comes into fruition about another minute from now where the runners are. Do you want to talk about that, Gutty?
Yeah. Do we have a name for this guy actually?
Yes. So that guy's named George.
So George, I believe he has 2 cycles, a good one and a bad one. Like GB said, it's decided when you enter the section, and actually,
Yes.
I'll let you finish it.
No worries. Yeah, so George is he's what Natalier is actually walking up to right now. This big rock guy is what we named George, and I'm sure you may have noticed that the George and Lenny theme, as kind of attributing them to Of Mice and Men. But George here, he walks back and forth across this section up here, and that's a global cycle that starts at the very beginning of entering this section. So for every second you lose in the run up to George, there's a potential you could miss his cycle and have to wait up at the top of that for him to walk back again to heavy onto him, because if he's all the way on the right, you won't be able to land on him and you'll have to wait.
And what's interesting is that FCRacer went for the left side first.
Yeah, he looked a little confused in the middle section, like he didn't really know where to go. Again, that's likely just the kind of rustiness from him coming into play, unfortunately. But ultimately, you can go to that left side first. We always go to the right side to hit George typically, because you're able to hit the very first cycle after triggering that clock in the middle that way. And it all kind of lines up going back and forth to hit the cycles given perfect movement. It looks like FC might be able to catch Lenny. He decides to be safe and wait for him.
And Natalier used an interesting way of getting that star. Instead of heavy, she just walked off the platform and it lined up perfectly.
And now you'll see Natalier entering the Ferris wheel section. This is a giant Ferris wheel that you have to climb up in order to activate that big pressure plate in the middle by heavying down onto it. This is more just an actually surprisingly non-trivial section to optimize, hitting all your jumps as you go up various slopes up and down and trying to climb as quickly as possible. And then at the top of this, they will attempt to do what we call an insta-heavy. So an insta-heavy, first let's see if she's able to hit it. She does, actually.
She does.
So an insta-heavy is what you saw right there, where GRIS enters into her heavy animation and instantly becomes heavy and drops. It happens when the character model clips through some sort of mesh or some sort of collision object in the game, often at the edge of ledges, like was used there, and in other place rocks or other things. Essentially, the animation to open the heavy is trying to happen on top of that overlay, and the game freaks out and says, "Just skip it. Just make her heavy." Saving as much as I want to say
Fine.
a half a second over just heavy normally. But an insta heavy is, I believe, a frame perfect trick for most of these. If you're a frame or two early, that's okay. You'll still essentially get a partial heavy. She will, and then as soon as you get to that frame on the edge, she will complete the heavy. But if you're a frame late, you will fail it completely, and she will be out in the air and go through the entire heavy animation. So you tend to want to err on the side of doing it slightly early. And once more, the runner's entering mom's hand again at the end of the section.
Looks like Natalier is almost on PB pace, which is pretty good. I cannot tell about FCRacers since he only have a simple timer.
Yeah, it's again, as I'm sure those of you have been watching these races know, and for those of you who are new and just now watching these races, these have been incredibly good races so far in this tournament. Every single racer has PB'd with the exception of one that was within 2 seconds of PB. Even the last race, I believe, being a new world record in this category.
A new world record by once again.
Yeah, and that's a world record that was very optimized. That was by no means a world record that was up for grabs. So we've been super impressed with it so far. We're super excited for this. This is the final race of round 1 of the tournament. Most of the round 2 races, 2 of the round 2 races have actually been completed already. The other 2 likely happening next week. But we're super excited for the rest of this going forward. And now this bridge, Natalier is crossing into the next
Green.
section of the game, green, which represents bargaining here.
Or bribery as does like it.
Yeah, he says that. I think it's fair to say it's bargaining. I mean, you are trading things.
And another insta for Natalier, or a partial, I think.
Yeah, it looked like it was at least a partial. Again, those are not easy to hit, and off to a great start.
I like the insta more for the swag of it and less for the time save.
Yeah, that's another thing about the insta heavies. They're super satisfying when you hit them. Just the sound of you instantly hitting that heavy and dropping down is super impressive. And there was also an example there where you saw FC was slightly late on that heavy and had to do the full animation in the air. It looks like Natalier, though, did miss the first main cycle in this game, or in this section rather. The fast trees strat, you essentially want to try to jump onto that middle tree and then jump across at about as late as you possibly can, even as the tree is disappearing, to try to make that very first cycle. But it looks like she just skimmed the jump, losing about I think maybe 12 seconds because she had to end up waiting for an extra cycle. Yeah, other than that, that slight hiccup on that tree cycle, though, Natalier's movement has been pretty great so far.
Incredible.
She's continuing to gain on FC, and deservedly so. This section of the game is also very tranquil. The music is comforting. It's, you know, it's you've come out of anger, and it's kind of again another transition in the emotions in this game that I think are portrayed very well. You also see here Natalier coming up to our first friend of the game, who we've named Macaroni. Tass actually came up with the name for Macaroni because it reminded him of the Yankee Doodle song, where he put feathers in his cap and called him Macaroni, similar to the feathers in the characters here. Macaroni is one major source of RNG in this game. Macaroni has essentially hard-coded random amounts of times that he waits before doing various actions, such as in the section where Natalier is, where she is feeding him apples. Sometimes he waits a second to eat the apple, sometimes he eats the apple right away. For top level runners, that can be, you know, very frustrating, essentially uncontrollable RNG, but I still like Macaroni. He's my friend.
It's more or less a 27-second lead for Natalier right now. And yeah, we just bribed Macaroni into opening his little secret hole.
But he was happy about it. It's okay.
Well, if I give you $1,000 to open your door, you will be happy about it. Let's be honest here.
Yeah, and again, the section that Natalier just went through and the section that FC is in now, this section you actually have to jump as you go to get Macaroni to jump up the branches to get to you. I don't think I ever realized you had to do that in my casual playthrough, and just because I was so used to bunny hopping in the speedruns, I always did it in that section. So when I missed this bunny hop one time in that section, and Macaroni fell to the bottom and I had to go back around, it was extremely confusing.
I can
Just
imagine.
another example of there's lots of parts of these games where there's various optimizations that we as speedrunners have to do, and small slip ups can have big impacts, especially when cycles are involved or tight tricks where we take advantage of all of the leniency the game gives us.
And here we're gonna say farewell to Macaroni. We're gonna say it in another 2 minutes though. To say the real farewell.
He still has one more little gift for us. So you saw FC there actually, as he came through that section down onto that slope, he actually canceled his heavy before falling through and did a slow glide to the left. That may actually be a relic of from when he speedran the game, because at the time, that was the strat that the top runners were doing, before we ultimately found out that the advantage you get from moving to the left isn't actually enough to make it faster than heavying all the way down. So that's interesting to see from him.
I did not know that.
Yeah, that was the case before I was introduced to this game. I'm still relatively new to this game, to the people who originally started running that. But yes, apparently that was the strat originally.
And yeah, the platforming in this cavern is quite finicky because the curve around those woods plank isn't really all. How do you say it? You can't go on it, basically.
Yeah, it's one of those cases again where this is an art game and the art and the style and design very much dominate it, but it is still a video game, so they do ultimately need to draw hitboxes on these things. So lots of times they don't always line up exactly how you would think, and so you kind of just have to know where the platforms are. And now the section on the left, Natalia is entering, is a section with red trees, which, as you'll notice, are triggered by GRIS's jumps. For each jump, the trees switch states, and you have to time those to try to enter and jump across these trees at the top. Some runners have setups for these jumps. I don't really. I kind of just go for it, and it usually lines up, except when it doesn't, and I lose 10 seconds. And as you saw, Natalier there being safe, stopping at the top to get one more jump to line up those trees.
No swag climbing of the tree.
Ooh, looks like FC actually he stopped, figured out the timing, and then just missed the jump and actually fell back and had to come back around.
Oh.
Looks like FC forgot where to go for a second.
It's the casual route, I think. Like, you have to get on the tree usually and then jump from it.
Oh, fair enough. I don't remember casual strats for this game. And you also just saw Natalia there get her second power-up of the game, the glide. So now GRIS has a double jump and is able to glide after the second jump. That means the runners will no longer be able to buffer their jumps for their bunny hopping, as they've been able to do earlier in the game. And also you'll notice when they bunny hop, they continue to just do single jumps because when GRIS is gliding, she actually moves to the side at her normal walking speed as opposed to the faster in-air jumping speed. So we still prefer to regular jump when on the ground.
That's
Ooh.
Unfortunate.
Just missing getting around that. Took it much more carefully that time. Yeah, so if you glide too early there and hit that edge, sometimes you're able to still make it over to that platform, but sometimes you're not. And unfortunately for Natalie, she wasn't quite able to. So there's another section here. Throughout the section, the runners will use these various small sections of red birds that they use to propel themselves up. The hitboxes for these birds are very non-intuitive. Again, the decisions on art for the game dominated the decisions, and the hitboxes were kind of just thrown in seemingly haphazardly. Some have large hitboxes, some have small, but you kind of just have to figure it out as you go and hope they're nice to you.
Indeed.
And then the section that Natalia just got through and FC is in the middle of is the trees cycles. If in the birds section before that, you're able to get a really good bird launch, and then able to go really fast through these next two sections, you are actually able to hit surprisingly early cycles on that we call double fast trees if you're able to do it across both of those sections. It looks like neither of the runners were able to get that, and it's actually a deceptively difficult strat to hit.
Natalier got the fast tree, but not the double one. While FCRacer didn't get any of them. But yeah, it's pretty hard. Even I have a hard time doing it.
Interestingly, both of these runners do go left in the section in front of your mom in green. I don't
That's the
think
right way to go.
do you go that way?
Yes.
Oh, I don't think I've seen anybody other than Natalier ever go that way, and I haven't seen FC race before, so I guess I wouldn't have known. But every other racer I know goes to the right. There's no difference. The section is entirely symmetrical, and you're coming back to the middle anyway. But yeah, that's interesting to see that both of these racers go that way.
Always left side first.
Both runners are now entering into the first boss fight of the game. The large, mean bird. You'll also see into this section that there's some more red colors being played into, showing the kind of mix of emotions, whereas you're in the green section and bargaining was happening. There's still some anger, and it's playing a role with this big angry bird that's trying to blow you around, and is a very interesting kind of way of expressing these emotions of grief that this game is trying to express.
Do you think we'll see any of these runners going for a bird blow?
I believe Natalier is familiar with the strat and has tried it before. We'll see if she goes for it. I don't know if she's watching any of the streams and sees how far ahead she is, so maybe she'll try it, but let's see.
Looks like the casual way.
Yeah, so
Don't blame
Natalier
her.
went for the casual strat there to go across these birds. There's a strat found recently by our resident glitch hunter Skylar called Bird Blow, where that big aggressive bird, the bird does to big aggressive blow rather, the bird does to blow you across that area. You can, if you on the stairs on that left side there, if you're able to jump, trigger the first blow, and then jump again into the bird to trigger that heavy blow, and then get blown all the way to the middle, it will immediately go into its second heavy blow, and you save about 3 seconds over this casual strat where you have to wait on that tree in the middle for about 3 or 4 seconds. Ooh, looks like FC fell off the tree, not quite getting his glide off for that second section, probably losing him 10 seconds.
Yeah, also if you fail the bird blow, you lose 10 seconds, so it's a 10 versus 3 second payoff.
Yeah, it's an extremely risky strat, and it's extremely precise. Recently, a lot of the top runners have gotten more consistent. I believe Tass, Skylar, and I, and a couple of the other
Captain
runners, I believe,
Anarchy.
have found consistent enough strats that we're comfortable going with it. But originally, very few people were comfortable with it. Ooh. That was an unfortunate first half of bird fight for Natalier. She was trying to get all the way to that left side and heavy that pot while that bird was blowing heavy and not getting rolled up. But she did actually get rolled up back into the middle and have to go all the way back.
She used the Skylar and use strats.
That's something I don't think I've ever seen before, getting blown completely off that platform back down to the bottom. That's an unfortunate time loss for her. Yeah, so apparently Natalier did go for a strat very recently that he featured in his run earlier. That is slightly faster than how he had been doing it before. He apparently just discovered it, as he tends to do. And apparently Natalier went for that strat, but it unfortunately didn't quite work out for her. Now you see Natalier entering into Mom's hand once again to enter into blue, or the depression section of the game.
Looks like a 47 lead. 46,
Yeah, that's definitely a pretty solid lead, but I would not call this race now at all. Most of the most difficult movement in the game in precise sections are coming up in the later sections, so there certainly is plenty of chance for FC to catch back up.
The water movement is really where it's at.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll see in the depression section, there are various sections where you're moving through water that are, again, very precise and difficult to get right. In this split that both of the racers are in now is the backtrack back to the hub from the green section. It's about a 3.5 minute split, but has two essentially tricks in it. There is, at the very beginning when you fall into that tower, the racers attempt to glide before they hit the water to avoid falling deep into the water, which you otherwise would if you weren't gliding, but also try not to glide too early and hit the side of the tower and failing to get an advantage by moving over to the right. Failing that strat, I believe, loses about 2 seconds. And then the other strat in this section, which is very, very difficult to line up with these cycles, is the memento route. So there's a memento in that area that it looks like FC actually hit memento route, that you see him climbing right now as he goes up this way, and then you'll see him continue on the route. But yeah, so it looks like he just got a little bit confused on which way to go. But we do typically try to go up for at least the beginning section of that route to save some time by avoiding a section where you have to climb up the hill, and by taking advantage of the boost in speed gained by one of the birds you get blown through there. It only saves about a half a second, and it's really precise. It's essentially free to go for, so everybody always tries to hit it. Now that Natalier has deposited her stars, she'll be entering into the depression section formally, which is below the hub area. You'll see the racers trekking down through various caverns to the sections at the bottom of the map.
And this whole section is based on the global cycle. It's 8 seconds per cycle, so you can make a lot of mistakes and still make the cycle.
Yeah, so there's a fast cycle that racers typically try to hit, and there's about 7 seconds of leniency to try to hit that cycle. It looks like Natalier actually missed the first strat that we have to try to hit that cycle in this section by missing heavy dive skip, which is a strategy where we try to break that section of blocks without falling all the way through it, and then unheavying and just falling and gliding to the right and avoid that very slow climb out of the water that you saw GRIS do there. And it saves about 5 seconds. So if she has super clean movement for the rest of the section, she can still hit the fast cycle and ultimately not lose any time, but it'll be very difficult to do that at this point.
Oh, and another insta.
Wow.
A
That's
really
an
risky move
impressive.
there.
Yeah, that's an impressive insta, because if you miss that insta a frame late, you will do your entire heavy animation in the air and then not even fall all the way through the water. It will not let you go all the way through. You'll be floated back up to the top and you have to go all the way around and do it again. So a risky strat, but very impressively hit. And again, like I've been mentioning before, Natalier, she's missed a couple strats and a couple cycles and spots, but overall her movement and her mechanics have been really clean and looked really good. Looks like she did go for a slightly slower route on the mushrooms, jumping off that slide a little earlier than you need to. Typically, she would be trying to go further down that slide and getting a further momentum jump onto later mushrooms. Unfortunately, I think that means I don't think she's going to make fast cycle at this point. We'll see. Those pulleys were pretty good. Not quite perfect, but I think it'll be pretty tight to see if she makes fast cycle. Doing another slight hiccup, just not quite remembering which direction to go.
I mean, this place is dark and it can be quite confusing.
Oh, absolutely. That's for a long time I was not hitting fast cycle just because I couldn't remember where to go in this friggin' section. And again, this is one of those games where it's all very linear and straightforward, but it's way easier when you're a casual player and you have all day in the world to continue through the game. Whereas as a speedrunner, you have to know exactly what's coming up next every time and be ready for it.
Looks like FC tried to go for the fast mushroom, but missed it just by a little bit.
Yeah, so Natalier did miss the fast cycle there. The fast cycle occurs in this section where these heavies are triggered. So these heavies being frozen into ice are on an 8-second cycle, and she wanted to try to get there in time to make that heavy, and on the first cycle where that's possible. As Cuddy mentioned, this is a global cycle that starts as soon as you enter the section, up by the hub. I believe she could have made it if she had heavy further to the right and just committed to it. It looked close, but I think she could have made it, but she went for jumping all the way over to the left and didn't quite make that.
And she made the 2-cycle.
Yeah, what you just saw from Natalier there was the 2-cycle strategy on the right side there, which is very difficult to hit. It requires you leaving the heavy animation before the just before the ice actually triggers at the very beginning of it, and then having nearly perfect movement all the way over to that section to make it in time for that cycle. And so great job from her. And now Natalier has gotten her third power-up of the game, the dive. So water went from being really, really slow and us trying to avoid it constantly to being very, very fast and us trying to spend as much time in the water as possible. GRIS is now a fish.
I think it's a speed of 6 when swimming and 9 when diving.
I'm not sure. I'd have to double check. If you're interested in, those of you watching are interested in things like this and interesting speedrunning facts about GRIS and getting into speedrunning the game, you can join the GRIS speedrunning Discord, and we have all of that information over there. It looks like FC may have forgotten how to do this section. To be fair, on my casual playthrough of this game, this is about how I looked, having no idea how to get through this section. It is. Oh,
I think he said he's gonna concede on the chat.
okay.
I think I can read it.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean FC, it's ultimately up to him. I mean, he can continue racing if he wants to keep playing, but we'll see here. And
It's all fine, FCRacer. The most important thing is to have fun. I hope you
yeah,
had fun doing this.
yeah, absolutely. Again, this is, we're not super competitive over here trying to be real crazy. We're playing an art game. Like,
We already knew that Tess would win the tournament anyway.
well, Tasselfoot is actually no longer the world record holder in this category, so who knows at this point. Like we said before, it will be very exciting, and I'm absolutely looking forward to the rest of this race.
It's just some banter since Skylar beat me. So I need to at least vote for Tassel.
This is another section of the game you see Natalier going through, where she actually goes a different direction from, I believe, many of the other racers, but by going top left, then to bottom right, to bottom left, or top left to bottom right to top right. Whereas I and many of the other racers start in the top right. I don't think it makes any time difference, but just an interesting other way that she runs this game. And here we also meet our next friend, Turtle.
Water snake.
He's gonna help us through the dark water. If you like turtle, you can get a turtle emote in Tasselfoot's channel. Shameless plug.
Wow. There's also an emoji that you don't need to subscribe
That is true.
if you're on phone or. And there's the macaroni emote for FCRacer.
Yeah, that's an awesome emote. I love that emote. Yeah, so we are going to show off the rest of this game for you guys. Natalier is going to finish her run, which is great because this is a very fun game to watch. It's a fun game to see speedrun and a fun game to see played in general. One other thing I want to plug is all of the music in this game was composed and performed by Berlinist. They did a absolutely fantastic job. I think anyone who's played this game understands how emotional and intense this music can be, and it's something I never get sick of, even having played this game for hundreds and hundreds of hours.
I'm not even at 100 yet.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm at either. I'd probably have to check. Natalia is also entering the second boss fight of the game, the eel.
Or as Tasselfoot call it, the water snake.
I don't know why he calls it that. It's not. It's an
For the
eel.
meme.
It's a different thing. And also the code literally says eel, but that's okay. One thing that I didn't kind of overall mention about this game is there's no text in this game. There's no language setting when you there's language in the main
It's
menu.
all up
But
to your imagination.
other than that, there's no text in this game. There's no voice acting. None of the characters have names. It's just meant to evoke the emotions that it's trying to evoke through the artwork. So as we've mentioned various times throughout this, we've come up with community names for a bunch of the various characters. So you can call it an eel, you can call it a water snake. It
You
really
can call it a
doesn't matter.
moray. You can call it the eater also.
The big scary bird monster that's now in the water and tries to bite you.
Your emotion backfired. Yeah, this part can also be quite tricky to not get lost into it.
Yeah, so this tunnel is the section between the two main sections of the eel fight. You kind of just have to memorize how it's laid out. The game's fairly lenient. If you kind of just bumble your way through it, you'll bonk around, but it'll ultimately steer you in the right direction. But you can lose it. You'll lose probably as many as 5 or 6 seconds if you don't have it memorized and know where you're going.
You can also use a picture like me instead of memorizing it.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't think I'd even thought of that.
I'm gonna post it on the Discord for the one interested.
Yeah, come check out the Discord. Also on the Discord, actually, I did an entire playthrough of this game with a modded game where I had it zoomed out. So if you want to see some of the various kind of larger layout sections of the game and look at how it's laid out and see how the runners have been progressing through it, you can check it out there. Turtle
Turtle.
Friend's back. It's here to save the day.
No song though.
Yeah, I always kind of perceived as this section as, you know, as you're going through depression and going through hard times and that you have friends, you have family. There are always people who love you regardless, and they're the ones that can get you through it. So reach out. There's people. People can help. And now after that, that earlier hand entry and after that eel fight, we're now into the last section of this game. We're backtracking to the hub here before entering into the yellow or acceptance section of the game. And some of the mechanics of that section, like these lights being lit up as you go by them and revealing things, are one of the themes that'll be coming up in that section.
And this is gonna be one of the hardest section to maneuver in. It's a lot of hard movement and you can lose a lot of time if you don't know the way also.
Yeah, so once into this acceptance section, you'll have all of your power-ups of the game. You'll have to move in full use of 2 dimensions, even going upside down at times, and all kinds of precise movements that make or break these runs. These are sections where, you know, little slip-ups in movement here and there can lose you 15 to 20 seconds, which can easily shape a run. And there's no cycles to fall back on. Every small movement mistake adds up. And there you saw Natalier attempt to get a water exit as she came out to that area to jump out to the right before triggering this constellation cutscene. She is still in the water, so she should still be able to get a jump over in that direction.
That jump is so hard to get. But maybe
Yeah,
that's just me.
it's also possible to jump out of the water too far. Sometimes you can jump out of the water and land all the way at the base of the stairs or even slightly past it, at which case you have to actually turn backwards slightly to get up the staircase. So yeah, certainly not something easy to hit, and just, again, another one of those small optimizations that comes into play in many of these races and at the highest level of play in this game. Here's seeing one of the first mechanics of this section, these bulb bugs. Again, just to kind of reiterate about the naming of the various characters, is that these look like lightning bugs, and I think it makes the most sense to call them lightning bugs. Later on, we ultimately looked in the code of the game and saw what these various things were named, and discovered that the stars that we collect are actually called fireflies by the game, and those bugs that you saw Natalier collect there are actually called bulb bugs, I believe, light bulb bugs. Um, I don't really like those names. I like stars and fireflies respectively better, so I'm gonna stick with those on those.
Indeed.
You also saw her use this new mechanic of golden birds, which light up various areas and have timers on them. So they light up an area and you have to traverse through it before they fade away and disappear. Looks like slight mistake. Getting a slightly awkward jump out of that and not being able to get that full bird jump to the top. But other than that, fairly good movement so far in this section.
And we now enter the water cube.
Yeah, these water cubes are one of the more precise movement sections in the split. Natalier looks like she took a fairly conservative route through them, but if you can time all of your dives perfectly and make extra jumps to maintain all of the momentum out of those, it can save a lot of time actually just by simple movement optimizations in that section.
And it is
but
quite satisfying to do.
Absolutely.
But yeah, pretty hard also to do.
Yeah, that's absolutely one of those sections that just comes with practice. All of these runners have spent a fair amount of time on the game, and it's something you just get better and better each time you do. There's no one strat that you just have to learn. It's just a lot of movement optimization and getting accustomed to it. You can also see Natalier here entering into the section to collect the stars for the final power-up of the game. She goes to the left first in this section, and I believe after collecting the power-up as well. Most of the runners go to the right. There are several runners which go to the left. I don't know what direction you go, Cuddy.
Left, then right.
Well,
I mean, left after before the power up, and then right after the power up.
That's just ridiculous.
I think Natalier does the same, actually.
That's just blasphemy. But again, in these sections, it doesn't actually matter because you come back through the hub each time anyway. But we do have one runner who early on infamously started going left instead of the rest of us Aggie, but they're Australian, so that's only to be expected.
I mean, can you do the tower strats if you go to the left after the power up?
Yes, they're symmetrical. You can use it on both sides. So you also see here the first example of some of this upside down movement as GRIS gets flipped upside down and right side up. Looks like Natalier slightly missed triggering. There she gets it. Triggering that lamp to light up that section and having to go back around and do it again.
If you go too high, you can cross over. That's why she tried to take it safe, but...
Yeah, typically, and it doesn't look like this is the strat she went for, but the strat I do, and I believe some of the other top runners do, is actually not diving out of the water, just sliding out of the water, then triggering the birds, and you won't even have enough momentum to get all the way across to flipping back upside down.
Some dolphin action.
That was impressive. That's a strategy to get through that water section that I believe is slightly faster when done optimally. Various speedrunners have been experimenting with that recently. I don't do that strategy, but I think that looked really good, and I think that almost certainly saved her time over just swimming and diving normally. And this section is another one of those intricate and precise movement sections, going upside down and right side up in every which way, collecting birds, jumping through water. It's extremely satisfying to get right.
But it's also hard to get right.
Absolutely, it's a lot of precise movements all piled up together. But overall, a couple of small mistakes from Natalier there, but overall, it's still a pretty good section.
And I think she golded that.
Yeah, that's one of those sections that you'll see runners gold a lot.
Every time.
Because it's just, again, a lot of movement that requires practice and practice and practice, and you slowly get better and better, shaving off seconds at a time. Now she's also gotten her final power up of the game. GRIS has now regained her voice and is able to sing and turn on various flowers and animated features, such as Spider, who we see here.
Water spider.
That's fair. He's in water.
So she's not going for the dolphin struts here, nor the dance.
Yeah, since you're up on that tower and you're essentially waiting for 6 or 7 seconds for the spider to come over, some people dance around on this tower, some people swim around on the bottom and then jump up with the birds.
And
Lots
some
of people doing
sing.
swag, but lots of times you just want to focus on this next section of the game.
You just want to take a little break to focus afterward.
Yeah, so this next section Natalier is entering is one of the most infamous tricks, if not the most infamous trick, in the speedrun for this game, which is one cycle and no cycle. So what you'll first see her attempt is one cycle. She will try to trigger the bug in the bottom of this room that we call bug room, and try to leave the scene as soon as possible so that she can jump over to the platform and jump onto the bug as quickly as possible.
She wants to jump out of that sing animation to trigger it a bit earlier.
Yeah, it looked like she held the scene slightly too long, wasn't able to get out in time, and wasn't able to make that cycle. Is she going for no cycle?
She tried.
Wow. So the other trick in this section is no cycle, which you saw Natalier attempt there. And that is essentially you jump up onto that first bug, and then you run off the edge of it, try to make a frame perfect jump off the edge of that platform, and as you flip over, make another frame or 2 frame perfect jump to glide across to this platform at the end. It's extremely precise and extremely difficult, and even the top runners of the game, such as Tasselfoot, who had the world record for until today for a very long time in this game, was still only able to hit it maybe 25% of the time at best. It's this strat that's an hour and 15 minutes into a run and loses 22 seconds if you miss it. So at the highest levels of running this game, it's essentially means 75% of your runs just die there. But most of us aren't good at hitting no cycle, so you can still put up very competitive times without it. I believe there's only currently 3 runners who have posted PBs, which include no cycle. I think Skylar hit no cycle today, right?
Yeah, he did.
Okay, I guess that would have been insane if he didn't actually. But yeah, like I said, only 3 runners have actual posted PBs that include no cycle, so it's just that difficult. And that was only 1 as of a month ago.
I mean, being in a racing environment is bringing the best of all of us.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm unbelievably impressed with how everyone's done. As we mentioned before, nearly every runner getting a PB or one or nearly a
Some
PB.
getting 2.
Yeah, oh yeah, because that was your second round race, so you've now
Yeah.
gotten 2 PBs in this tournament. Yeah, absolutely impressive performances from absolutely everybody in this tournament. I'm super excited for the rest of this. And after this race, you'll see Natalier going up Tasselfoot, I believe, in the top section of the bracket. As we've mentioned, he was the long-time world record holder and the #1 seed in this tournament, so that'll be a tough race for her. But as we've kept saying throughout this, she's had some great movement, some definitely clean looks, and I don't know. I think Dash should be a little worried.
You should. Goose Game is gonna make him rusty.
Yeah, Taz, he's been playing Untitled Goose Game for the past while now and has been rusty on GRIS, so ooh, an unfortunate slip up from Natalier there, missing the flower room skip. So in this section, if you activate those birds at the bottom, you can jump up and mash the jump button to try to jump cancel and land on that bottom flower, and you completely avoid that whole upside down section. Just a really unfortunate mistake for her, but again, like I said, it's so far all we've seen from her are some of these, little strat mistakes that can be fixed, but all of her overall movement and skills at this game are clearly there. So she paused for a moment there, possibly
Yeah, to type what in chat.
to reflect on her mistake and type in chat, but understandable.
But you said mashing to cancel the jump, but it's really just 2 input, or 3 if you want to stop gliding.
Yeah, so if you want to be as precise as possible and time it, you can do so. But mashing is always the easiest way to do it, and is typically the way most runners initially learn to do the trick. Because it's essentially hard to mess up if you just mash as much as possible. If you mash super fast, you can potentially not even get high enough to land on that flower, but that's not a big deal because you then just make the jump again. But for people who have practiced it over and over and over again, you can try to be even more precise and time the inputs exactly. But because of how the jump cancels work in this game, you don't actually have to. Mashing works as well. See Natalier here activating this flip where she will fall back into the hub and enter into the final section of the game, the end split.
GRIS and the game.
See her deposit her final stars here, and then she'll fly up to try to climb up that path. And while she tries and wants to climb up that path, she is stopped
By her evil twin daughter.
Eel's back, and the bird is back. And everything that has represented is kind of coming to fruition, and the game expressing here that it was really you all along. Now you'll see GRIS climbing back through this black water down here. This section is an auto scroller. Unfortunately, you can move back and forth to the left and right, but there's no way to actually swim faster. The developers decided to, sacrifice gameplay for the impact of this kind of darkness before the dawn, so to speak. Which, fair enough, that's what they're going for, but kind of sad that you don't really get to do anything.
Will she sing for her mother? That's the question. She will.
Yeah, so Natalier there singing for her mother one last time, lighting up those flowers on her grave. That's I mean, in the speed run, as far as it goes, straight up time loss. It's not something you need to do to complete the game. But I'm not sure what pace she's on. I think she's not on PB pace anymore.
She's
So
1 minute at events again behind.
yeah, so just doing it for swag, and it's a nice thing to do for your mom.
Because she tried to force us to do it. Me and Skylar.
And now we're entering into the final major cutscene of the game, which I think I'm just going to be quiet for and let you enjoy. as I think I've mentioned before, I have hundreds of hours on this game, and I honestly still never get tired of that cutscene. It's extremely beautiful. Looks like Natalier is about on pace to finish with I want to say about a 1:30:30, which is still a very good run. Like I said, she's clearly been practicing, had lots of great movement throughout these sections. A few mistakes on some of the strats ultimately cost her a fair amount of time, but I still think Tass needs to be worried.
$133.
GG's from both racers.
GG to both of them, indeed.
Great work. Like I've said before, this has been a super exciting tournament, so we're looking forward to the rest of it. Should be super fun. I believe lots of the other second round matches will likely be scheduled for probably sometime next week. I'm not sure they are officially on the schedule yet.
They are on it.
But like I said, super excited for it. GG's for this race between Natalier and FCRacers. If you enjoyed the game, if you're interested in speedrunning it, like I said, I think it's a really fun game to speedrun. It's relaxing and a nice change of pace from a lot of speedrun games, but still, as you've seen, a lot of tricks, a lot of strats, a lot of interesting things in the game.
Hi.
Hey,
Oh
Natalie.
yeah, I can hear you now. Cool. Wow. I failed everything that I was supposed to do, but you know, in the end, it was a win. Win's a win. I'll take.
Yeah, and I was mentioning repeatedly throughout the run. A lot of your movement was super impressive. Like your
Yeah.
practice has definitely showed up. I mean you missed
So
some
like,
spots and some strats, but
just
overall
like
your movement was still
yeah,
very good.
just do a whole stream of like, actually Natalie, actually Natalie's better than this. She's having a bad one today.
Yeah, no. Regardless, though, good run, good race.
Yeah.
And I was saying, like I said, with with some of the strats being hit and your movement as good as it is, Tash should be worried. He's pretty rusty.
Oh yeah, he's going down. You hear me, number 2? It's me, number 14, coming for you, man.
The gauntlet has been dropped.
I'm gonna shave 4 minutes off my PB. It's gonna happen.
uh, absolutely fabulous. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to the rest of this tournament. As I said, if you enjoyed and interested in the game or interested in speedrunning the game, come check out our Discord. The link is on the speedrun.com site. And I hope you all enjoyed. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, and I'll continue streaming. So have a good one.
See you guys.